things are heating up for Diddy inside the prison too. Allegedly, Diddy is having nervous breakdowns and is scared out of his mind. He knows he could get jumped at any time and wants to get out as soon as he can. Things aren't going great outside of prison either, which we'll get into later. For now, you should keep in mind that 3 of Diddy's biggest co-conspirators have also been named in lawsuits and could very well be joining Diddy in jail soon. There are rumors that Diddy has given up on his case and is thinking of suicide too.
Ended up being recorded.
What he did here is on a magnitude of unlike anybody else you could imagine. A week after these public searches were televised, he gave us his passport. His children gave us his passport. He then paid off the mortgage entirely on his Miami home, $18 million. It's instructive that he's going to have a bail package ready so that if he was arrested, he would have something ready so that he could get out the next day and show the judge he's taking this very seriously, which he is, which is why 12 days ago, Chris, when we thought there's an indictment that may be coming, he flew to New York the very next day. And that's an extraordinary move for a defendant who's been under investigation that he's been aware of for at least 6 months. He has done everything somebody under investigation can do. I can't think of anything else that he could have done. He's fighting, he's innocent, and he's gonna be able to show it.
What do you think about that counter argument? Because his team has said, we're gonna put together the proposed bail package. A $50 million bond, co-signed by him, his mom, his sister, the mother of his oldest daughter, and his 3 adult sons. It's gonna be secured by the equity in his property in Miami, Florida. Home detention, his passport will be surrendered. The government said that's insufficient. They said, look at the charges, look at the weight of the evidence that I just mentioned. They said they have allegations that he and his associates were trying to tamper with witness testimony last year so that they wouldn't cooperate with the government. What do you take away about who has the stronger argument in terms of bail?
Well, I think his counsel has done the best they possibly can. I think bringing him there voluntarily is very smart, starts them out on the right foot. But I think the last thing that you just mentioned, the interfering with witnesses.
That's the allegation, yeah.
Yeah, if that's true, or I should say, if there's real indicia that happened, I think that might tip the scales in favor of not letting him out pending trial, because I think, and you know this, I think judges take an extraordinarily dim view of that, and that might be the factor that tips the scale against him. But I think as far as attack...
In the last few days, Diddy's legal team has acknowledged the existence of Diddy's freak-off tapes out of desperation and announced that while these tapes do exist, they don't show Diddy taking advantage of anyone. Diddy's lawyers claim that 9 freak-off tapes exist, and these tapes actually prove Diddy's innocence.
According to a report from the Daily Mail, that's why Diddy had a breakdown. A person close to him apparently said, quote, spending the holidays behind bars was a nightmare for him. If we're to believe all this, Diddy had a meltdown in his cell and begged the guards to take him to the hospital for observation, but they refused. This same friend or person told the Daily Mail, quote, he eventually managed to calm himself down with the meditation technique he's been using while he's been behind bars. It took him a few hours of deep breathing and focusing to get out of the bad space he was in, but he finally managed it. This isn't the first time Diddy's mental health has come into question while he's been at MDC. When he first arrived, he was on suicide watch, which the U.S. Department of Justice National Institute of Corrections describes as supervisory precautions taken for suicidal inmates that require frequent observation. Diddy's suicide watch was only temporary, though. He was housed in a special protected unit of the jail after that for the first few weeks of his stay. But Diddy right now is in Gen Pop, meaning general population, the place where majority of the inmates stay. And that's where he apparently had this meltdown over the holidays, at least according to one source.
He's suffering the consequence, and I don't feel bad for him at all. Because people was trying to talk to him. People was trying to tell him. You couldn't pull him by the coat and let him know anything. You understand? They messed up the game, brother. When he put that shit out with them, money, power, respect, it ain't never been like that. It ain't never been like that. You got your respect in the street that gave you your power, that brought you your money. Totally different thing. He let that money, power, and respect go to his head, but he had it ass backwards. So do I care what happened? Nah. He got enough money to buy his way out of this. So we think.
So when you look at that video of him pacing around and he's looking worried, and you knowing him, do you think it's possible that he might commit suicide?
When you're a narcissist, there's always a possibility because you're suffering. But I don't think that he could see himself in a cage. I don't think he could see himself behind those bars in those type of situations. It's too many real dudes that dislike him. But then again, there's a lot of real dudes that need help. And him being behind bars, he could probably help them.
There's really no deal that the U.S. Attorney's Office can offer, and it's certainly not one that Diddy will accept. It would involve decades in federal prison. We're talking about mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years for both the drug charges and the sex trafficking. So we know that Diddy has fought charges before. There were state charges, there were gun-related, the nightclub shooting with J-Lo, but he's going to dig in his heels, and this case is going to trial. So if you're prosecutors, you really want to make sure that your evidence is bulletproof before you go down there.
Diddy's losing the battle on both fronts. Inside the jail, Diddy is at his wit's end, and outside of the jail, all of his friends are being dragged into his mess too. Jennifer Lopez, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, was just named as a material witness in an alleged case in his lawsuit. The alleged victim, Cardello Smith, claims that Diddy raped him in 1997 during a party at a Holiday Inn in Detroit. Cardello has named Jennifer Lopez a material witness in this case, and according to him, Diddy recorded the alleged sexual assault and J-Lo helped him cover it up.
In their letter, they write, quote, "Having reviewed these videos, it is now abundantly clear that they confirm Mr. Combs' innocence and that their full exculpatory value cannot be investigated and used unless they are electronically produced. The 9 videos at issue are the so-called freak-off tapes with victim 1 that the government has repeatedly referenced, causing wild speculation in the media. Contrary to what the government has led this court and the public to believe, the so-called freak-offs were private sexual activity between fully consenting adults in a long-term relationship. Like many Americans in the privacy of their own bedrooms, they sometimes filmed their sexual activity. These videos unambiguously show that the person alleged in the indictment to be victim 1 not only consented, but thoroughly enjoyed herself. And we believe, by the way, victim 1 to be Cassandra Ventura. This is Diddy's ex, who first filed that initial sexual assault lawsuit against Combs back in 2023. She was in that infamous surveillance footage that was published by CNN of an incident that happened in a hotel hallway where Combs is beating Ventura just while wearing a towel. It's a very disturbing video. He argues the videos don't show any orgies or celebrities or violence or coercion or threats or manipulation or evidence of anyone being under the influence of drugs, that this is not sex trafficking. Quote, "The premise that freak-offs are inherently dangerous shows that the government seeks to police non-conforming sexual activity and that it assumes, despite all evidence to the contrary, that a woman's willing participation must have been coerced." That's interesting because that's something we've long suspected, that the defense is not going to shy away from the term freak-offs. They might accept, yeah, Combs called these freak-offs, but this was entirely consensual. It was all on the up and up. It might be different to you and me, but there's nothing illegal going on here.
If they're really If the government is the government in the Southern District of New York, I can't imagine this is what they're hanging their hat on if it's what the defense describes. It's like one of those things that when you have a weakness in a case, the government has to decide how they're going to use that. My guess is they're going to use it to show that there were sex workers, that these sex workers were paid. I would imagine that they have the sex workers that are in the video to come in and describe what was going on or what happened before they went on tape. Whether or not they had drugs or alcohol or anything else, whether or not Cassie had drugs or alcohol, whether or not there was a discussion between Sean, Combs, and Cassie before the tape started. So
Right.
I think that the tape is going to be one portion of it, but the testimony of either the sex workers that were in the video, and or Cassie is going to kind of tie it together. That's my...
Officers that were involved in the raid on Diddy's mansion have also given their statement. And according to them, Diddy is finished without getting too much into the details. One officer said that baby oil and sex tapes are just a few of the key pieces of evidence they recovered from Diddy's home. In reality, there was more than enough evidence gathered from the scene to justify pre-trial detention without bail. And that Awawe, a thing's stand with Shaw Diddy comes to the courtroom, and outside the courtroom, with his legal battles and personal struggles taking an increasingly dark turn with every day that passes. The walls are closing in tighter, and his attempts to regain freedom are looking more desperate than ever as we continue to uncover shocking details about his case. One thing is certain: this story is far from over.